So hopefully you can hear me and see me all right. Good morning. My name is Derek. If you haven't seen my trainings before, I'm the master herbalist and founder of New Earth Organics. I know that I'm a last minute substitution for the slot today, so thanks so much for having me. I put something together last night. It's more of a continuation of what we did in September. So hopefully the majority of you had been to my talk in September. If not, totally cool. If I go over anything that you need more clarification on, just stop me, let me know at any time. Like I said, I do have the chat window open. So if you need to type something in the chat window, please go ahead. I'll try to focus on it. We only have, less than 50 minutes. So we're going to motor through the first half of it, which is a little bit more of a review from what we did last time. And then we are going to go deep into the season of winter and talk about the tonic herbs, the herbs and the practices that you should be doing or could be doing at this time of year. So what I was saying before is this is more of a continuation of what we did. I think it was September 15th, I think. So what is that, like 3 or 4 months exactly, which is awesome that I got in at this time so we can talk about the season of winter. You'll see coming up here that winter is actually the begin and the end of the whole seasonal attunement cycle, which I will get into. But really, this whole continuation, and if you've never seen me talk or train before, we're always following that seasonal approach to health and wellness. And that's really to realize this robust health. We're getting to the meat and potato of circadian biology is what it's called, how our body resonates with the external environment. And we'll get into that. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But like I said before, we talked about, I believe it was late summer going into fall. I looked at my notes trying to piece together what we did, but now we're fully in winter time. I know spring is fast approaching, but winter is very, very important to talk about. So we're going to dive deep into that. The seasons obviously are marked by the equinox and the solstice. So we have, over a month at least left of winter. So there's some good time. And like I always say, if I don't say this coming up here, there's no straight lines in nature. So we don't always have to take a hard and a fast approach to the seasonal approach to tonic herbalism. It's a blending gradual approach, but for the sake of time, I'm going to get into this. So thanks again for joining me. So why is it important to live in harmony with the seasons and talk about the seasons that we're in when it comes to tonic herbalism? This is something that we've known for thousands of years. If you've seen me talk before, you've seen this slide. But basically, we've known, almost since the beginning of time that living in harmony with nature, living in harmony with the seasons and paying respect to those are really what it comes down to when we want to produce that robust or create that robust health in the body. So we see it time and time again, Hippocrates, right? It's chiefly changes of the season that produce diseases. We see Charaka here, who's the father of Ayurveda. All diseases begin at the junction of the seasons. You find this obviously in Chinese medicine. We're going to deal more with Taoist Tonic Herbalism, which is very similar. It actually predates Chinese medicine, so there is some differences. It's more of an oral tradition, but you'll see the first 2 chapters, I believe, of the Neijing are all dedicated to this macrocosm, this circadian biology, this living in harmony with nature. So really, it's not something to take lightly. This whole seasonal cycle is a deep embedded, the circadian biology is a deep embedded software program that our hardware, right, our body operates in response to, right? We can't get away. This is like an internal operating system of the body. And so we really need to pay attention to it and honor it. So how do we follow these cycles of nature? What's the plan? What's the outline? Well, this really goes down to, like I said, embracing tonic herbalism and the practice of something called seasonal attunement, living in harmony with the seasons, tuning to the season that we're in, using certain herbs, certain practices, right, certain foods that help us get a deeper relationship with the season that we're in. Now, this always sounds quite comprehensive, quite an overload if you've never seen this before. And like I always mention, you'll find this is a comprehensive template. You'll find this diagram or this theory throughout Chinese medicine, throughout a lot of ancient herbology, obviously Taoist Tonic Herbalism, but this is a comprehensive template that works this whole system out for us. It's just about us paying attention to certain cues, certain clues within these seasons that help us resonate with the season that we're in. So if you look at this, this is a diagram. I'll explain this quickly. I know we've gone over it not that long ago, but again, if this is your first time here, and if this isn't a deep enough dive into what we'd call the 5-element theory or seasonal attunement theory, you can definitely, brush up on your Google skills, do some light Friday night reading, and kind of dive deep into 5-element theory. But in a nutshell, this is a comprehensive template that organizes everything in the natural environment into 5 distinct categories. The way seasonal attunement, the way I teach it, we approach it using the season instead of an element, right? Instead of an element, fire, metal, water type of thing, instead of an element as the head. So we use it as a seasonal cue, because I find not only does that make more sense to us in the West, but in general, it's easier to remember, hey, season change, what should I be doing now? So like I said before, pardon me, in September, we talked mostly about the late summer. We were into fall time, but that late summer season blends nicely into fall. Now we've gone out of autumn, right, out of fall, and we're deep into winter. Now winter, what's really interesting about winter, and even though it doesn't look like it, it is the begin and end of this whole schematic diagram. So basically the buck stops and starts here. So this whole system, basically in a nutshell, is all to make sure that we have a healthy kidney, jing, bladder system with the body. And I'll get deeper into that. But the season of winter is the beginning or end of this whole cycle. Now, obviously, it looks like summer is at the top. We won't get too much into why that is, but summer is what dictates our personality. But the foundation, right, just like the foundation of a home, all begins with the winter season. So this is an excellent time. So I'm really happy that this worked out, that we get to talk about it, and we'll get deep into it. So some things I want to talk about are mostly the cues of the winter season, obviously the herbs, but something we're going to get into, which we usually don't have time for, but I've made time in this talk to get into, is something called the 3 treasure theory. So when we look at this schematic, this is a more macrocosmic approach to circadian biology. This is how our body operates when the earth, we're not going to get into the flat earth theory here, but when our earth rotates around the sun, it dictates certain responses within the human body. Now, as you'll see when we get to the 3 treasures, and I'll go over this again, but the 3 treasures are an internal energy system on how these energies within this system interact with each other. And we'll get into that. So I don't want to jump too far ahead, but spoiler alert, like I said before, winter is the season of the kidney, urinary bladder. Said another way, this is the adrenal season. This is the adrenal season. We're going to get into adrenal fatigue, stress, jing energy, like I said, coming forward. And again, if you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll go back over this. But how do we, so this seems overwhelming, I get it, but how do we facilitate or guide this internal balance of seasonal harmony? It's really by embracing and utilizing tonic herbs. Tonic herbs are meant, especially if we use them seasonally, to help rebalance our body, to help push us back to coherence so that we're in tune with the harmony of nature. Obviously, foods and activities have something to play, but tonic herbs and herbs in general kind of allow us to cheat the system, right? They're the original biohack. We can consume these herbs and they'll bring our body back into balance, right? We're a self-healing organism. It's really our body that heals ourselves. The herbs will just guide us towards that center of healing. Now, if you're not familiar with tonic herbs, I know we went over this last time as well, but tonic herbs, again, in a nutshell, are these upper echelon herbs. When we look at the schematic of basically all herbs in Chinese medicine, and you can extrapolate this to any herbal system, Western, Greek herbal, but basically they're the upper echelon, the tip or apex of this triangle. Pardon me. The Chinese have dictated about 22 to 23 of what we call these superior supertonic herbs. These supertonic herbs pass this criteria here, the 6-point criteria, over thousands and thousands of years in order to get up to this upper apex of this triangle, right? Big ones are can do no harm, right? These are very safe, tonic, nourishing food type herbs. Now, the other thing that we can look at, especially in modern day life, and I don't like using this term because it's become such a marketing term, but it's the term superfood. When we see commercials, like there used to be those Subway commercials where they said avocados are superfoods and all these things. Well, we got to take that term with a grain of salt, but basically tonic herbs expand to that group of superfoods as well. So what are some examples of this? We can look at, where's my cursor? We can look at things like acai berry, for example, right? That is a food grade herb that is super in nature, right? It's going to be one of these tonic herbs. Now, maybe the Taoist Tonic Herbalism doesn't say that it's a tonic herb. We can expand that to these tonic nourishing foods. And, we carry a whole variety of them. So you can kind of just look down our list and kind of get a grasp on what these are. And there's many more out there, but these are superior, super nourishing tonic foods, very safe as opposed to general herbs. General example I always use is peppermint. It's an amazing herb, partly preventative, partly medicinal. It still doesn't get into this echelon. Inferior herbs I always use would be Cascara sagrada or golden seal. Amazing herbs when used correctly. They are medicinal herbs, but they operate on a different system of toxicity and healing with the body. Okay, that's in a quick nutshell. Again, any questions after? I'm going to try my best to leave a couple minutes. We can get into this deeper, but just remember that this expands into superfoods as well, was my point. Now, like we talked about last time, we went over the lung season. We went over late fall. I'm going to just blast through this really quickly for sake of time. But autumn was the lung season, really important, where we saw that, it's the lungs, large intestine was really important to know. White colored herbs, really interesting and important to know and embrace at this time of year. It was a time of good digestion and elimination, right? So we're paying homage and we're supporting our lungs as much as possible, right, through that cold and flu season. Now, we got into something really important there, which we will talk about here in terms of immunity with the winter season, but we got into the concept of the Wei Qi, right? This force field like energy body that basically emanates and protects us, being our first line of defense against contagious pathogens, okay? Very important in today's modern world, right? Contagious pathogens are everywhere, getting worse. I don't think it's too long before we see other pandemics happening and things like that because of the evolution, not to get too much into the testing and stuff, but humans are a bit messing with things, causing some crazy things to be created. So now more than ever, this Wei Qi, this public protective force field to keep that immune system strong or to keep that force strong is essential. Very, very important. Now, there's obviously different layers is what this shows of the Wei Qi. We won't get too much into that. But from a Western scientific standpoint, this Wei Qi, which they've been talking about for thousands of years, this energy body actually is part, when we look at a Western scientific standpoint, part of what we know as our lymphatic tissue or our skin-associated lymphatic tissue, our salt, right? This is another part of our immune system. We know that there's this fine network of lymphatic nodes that line our orifices on our body and under our skin, keeping our pores closed and protected from, again, external contagious pathogens. Okay, so the Wei Qi is very, very important, and it's a facet of our lymphatic system. Now, the Wei Qi is this three-step process, of building our system in order to enhance and give the best protective Wei Qi we can. You don't have to remember Wei Qi. You can just remember also known as the protective Qi of the body, right? This force field, this protection, this public protection. So when we looked before, when we talked before in September, we were talking about the late summer season, the spleen, digestion, if anyone was there. And I do believe those videos are still posted, so you can refer back to them if necessary. We talked about how the spleen and lungs come together to create the basis of this Wei Qi, the basis of our external immune system. But the third pillar, which is the foundational pillar, goes down to our kidneys, our kidney adrenal system, the season of winter. The kidneys are what emanate this force, right? Our kidneys supply the yang or active force behind our Wei Qi. So when we talk about our Wei Qi, when it doesn't, when it's built properly, but we have a weak kidney adrenal system, we're not going to fully emanate, so to speak, and not to be too esoteric in my language, but we're going to fully emanate this Wei Qi, right? We're going to push it out and give it force, to give it strength. Without this foundation, no matter how much we tonify these two organ systems, it's not going to do it. Now, nothing is isolated or separate in nature. So if you remember the 5-element theory, everything is interconnected. So we need to realize that leading up to this to build the kidney system is very, very important. Doing this basically boosts our body for the next 12 months ahead, right? So when we're talking about an organ season that we're in, we're looking at it at like as a yearly protocol in terms of that we need to address this organ in the season that we're in now for the next 12 months ahead. So when we look, there's my cursor, when we look, spleen, lungs come together, but we have to know that we can never fully build a strong kidney system unless we've actually started the work back here. But it's never too late. I'll get into that. But basically know in a nutshell that our kidneys are the foundation, our adrenal energy is the foundation, and they supply this active force behind our Wai Qi. Now, this is a more graphical representation of what I'm talking about. This is showing that the air that we breathe, right? We capture Qi or energy from the air that we breathe, mixed with the food that we eat, right? The food, sorry, I'm talking with my hands. Should be talking with my pointer here, but mixed with the food that we eat, coming together to build this Wai Qi, right? It's created in the middle burner of the body. Now, this is pushed by the kidney adrenal system, right? Our Jing energy, which we're going to get into very shortly. Our Jing energy is vaporized, causing this Qi spark that then pushes this immune system back out, right? Causing this, right? It's the battery. It's the life force. It's the reactor core of the Starship Enterprise shields, right? It's the energy that we need. So this is very important. Now, again, you can be extracting your air correctly in your food if you are born with some or a lack of strong Jing energy. You need to build that in order to push this force field out, okay, to spread this out. Now, any questions on that? Just keep my eye on time. I know that's a big download, but that's kind of a catch up to where we are, right? Keeping this contagious pathogen force field strong. Now let's dive deep into the winter. So this kidney adrenal bladder season is so, so important. I'll go over the points first. So like I always have these slides with these bullet points. You can write them down, just memorize them. It's a few key things to remember that are going to immensely help you when it comes to finding the right herbs and foods and activities for this time of year. It doesn't have to be too in-depth or too hard. Just memorizing that, hey, okay, winter is adrenal season. An associated sense is ears, right? So you'll see a lot of ear issues kind of creep up, hearing issues at this time of year. We want to know that it's the color of black. So this means black foods, black clothing, black herbs, those type of things will tonify the kidney adrenal system by nature of their color energy. We want to look at foods that are salty in nature. So mineral rich would be another way to say that. So we can think of things like bone broth, for example, something that's really good at this time of year. And this isn't for everybody for sure, but is dried meat. If we look at dried salted meat, think of jerky. It's not necessarily black, but it's a dark, dark red, almost black in color. So we got to take these color cues as more of a gamut of colors, a slight spectrum within the color than just the color themselves. Where I'm going with that is you'll also find at this time of year, dark purple berries. So we're talking like acai, maqui berry, blueberry, and they should all be dried, right? We don't want fresh foods at this time of year. We can talk more about that. But these dried foods, and this is why like superfood powders and why I'm so passionate about carrying such a wide array of purple superfood powders, that dried dark, dark berries, essential for building Jing at this time of year and healing the body, which we'll get into. If we look, acai is a really good example. It's black, black, purple in color, right? And it's also got a salty mineral taste to it. It does have a slight sweetness, but it would be an amazing food. So if you're not using acai right now, you should really consider it. Easy to add to things, or even just eating with a spoon. An amazing tonic food for the winter. Now, some important considerations are obviously we still want good digestion and elimination, very important. We don't want to collect too much in the body, right? The energy at this time of year is directing inward and downward. So you can have the propensity for things like constipation. This is why we want to keep our minerals high and really pay attention to digestion. This also goes into the fact that ideally we should be only eating with the sun cycles at this time of year. So I know, and people always hate on me when I talk about the winter, like our last meal should be like the 4:35 at this climate and this geography. I didn't create it, so don't get mad at me. I'm just the messenger, but I do try to embrace that, right? Not eating past dark, sun setting. And you'll see that in a lot of traditional cultures, right? They'll eat as the sun sets. It's because it's our last kind of point of the day for digestion that we should be eating. So hard, I know. Christmas time, it's like 4:30 setting, 4:29. But hey, it means makes a big difference when it comes to digestion and elimination. And you usually can avoid all those problems, even if you're eating a heavy like meat diet. If you're paying attention to the sun cycles and eating with them, you'll go a long way to ensuring good digestion and elimination. Okay. So again, kidney adrenals, fear. We don't have too much time to get into the emotion of fear, but we will talk about it when we talk about Jing next. Black colors, salty, mineral rich. We want salty foods, right? Less food, eating. Oh yeah, right here, sun cycle, I have it there. And not too wet of foods, which again, this would be too fatty or too cold and damp. So that's that one there. So what I want to talk about big time, because we never usually get to, is the 3 treasures. This is so exciting to me. We are a tonic herbal company. I've started our company based on the concept of the 3 treasures. It's amazing. And again, it seems foreign at first, these concepts, but memorizing these 3 points, these key points, can massively help you improve your health, right? It's getting away from our Western scientific approach where we're memorizing, phytonutrients or phytochemistry within herbs and what they do. This is taking a broader approach and organizing, just like the 5-element seasonal attunement theory, organizing things into these 3 distinct categories, giving them basically this bullet point to memorize. So you, for example, if you know about qi, you know that astragalus is a qi herb that would be great to consume for enhanced qi. But getting to the candle analogy, because this is the easiest way I find to explain what the Shen, Qi, and Jing are all about. Now, if we look at a candle, the foundation of the candle is the wax and the wick of the candle, right? Without the wax and the wick of a candle, we don't have a candle, right? There's no candle. The wax and wick of a candle are the Jing energy, right? They're a representation of what Jing is. Jing is our fundamental foundational life batteries. It's our concentrated energy or life, or life force. If we don't have Jing in the body, we don't have a body or an emanation of qi, because it follows that pattern. So I'll get back to Jing in one sec. I'll just explain the candle. So this would be the Jing. Now the qi of the body would be represented by the flame, right? So we light the candle, then we have a flame coming. That's giving us, the energy or the electricity of the candle. Same in our body, right? It's the electricity of our body, our qi. And most people are familiar with qi in the Western, so we don't have to spend too much time on it. This is all created together, the Jing and the qi, to boost and to foundationally support something called the Shen. The Shen is basically the light and the heat we would get from the candle. This in our human body is our personality. It's our spirit. You could go as far as saying it's our soul, but it's our emanating life force. So basically, when we have a candle, the Jing, wax, and wick, we light the candle, we get this heat or light from the candle. Shen is the whole purpose of why we would have a candle, right? The light off a candle is the whole reason. Just like the human body, it's the whole point. How we interact in life, our personality, right, is our whole point, at least according to Taoist Tonic Herbalism, is our whole point on why we're here. It's to build this personality, right? We won't get too deep into spirituality with it, but it's fascinating, this concept. So if someone has a Shen disturbance, that can be shown as personality disorder, could be someone who's just grumpy, someone who's mean, right? They have Shen disturbances. Someone with a really balanced, positive Shen is someone who's got a strong Shen. So think of like a Buddhist monk, very calm, very even, kind, happy, enlightened. These are all things that we work towards to get this beautiful light from our candle, this beautiful Shen energy. Now, backing up, because we don't, again, have a ton of time to get into it, but backing up, it all starts with the Jing energy, right? This wax and wick of a candle. Now, the Jing energy, just like the candle, when it burns, this wax is going to burn down, this qi is going to burn down this wax. Once that wax is gone, the party's over, no candle, just like your human body. The Chinese say that we're born with about 120 years of Jing at birth. Now, if you look at the modern life expectancy, it's a lot less than that. Why is that? Because we're burning our candle quicker than what we've innately been given. Now, there's something called prenatal Jing and postnatal Jing. Again, the prenatal Jing is this 120 years that we've been given upon birth. It is coming from our parents' energy, basically coming together to give us this foundational prenatal Jing energy. Postnatal Jing, which is, the Jing that we have in our lifetime that we can either burn through really quickly or build. So we can supplement our prenatal Jing through our postnatal Jing energy, right? So this is basically, in a nutshell, how we live our lives. Just like Jing in the body, like the wax burns to have the qi, if we're using too much qi in our lifestyle, which is depleted by stress, working too late, not sleeping enough, not eating right, all those things wear our qi down and drastically reduce our reserve or our life force of wax, our Jing energy. Does that kind of make sense, hopefully, for everybody? We'll get into defining it more, but it's basically this concentrated battery system. And just like a beeswax candle, like I always use this analogy too, if you've ever had a beeswax candle and you just light it and let it burn, that's the improper way to manage a beeswax candle. You'll probably notice that it starts to burn all crazy. The wax on one side might let go. You're supposed to actually roll the wax down as it burns and trim the wick down to about 1/4 inch. That'll keep your candle perfectly level and perfectly burning throughout its whole lifespan. If you don't keep care of it, candle's going to burn way too quick, and you're out of a candle, just like your Jing energy. So getting deeper into Jing, right? So we've talked about the candle. That's the easiest way to explain it. Now, Jing by nature is this pure black substance. So wintertime is the season of Jing energy, right? It's this black substance residing deep in the kidney system. Like I said before, it's our deepest source of energy in the body. It's associated with our DNA, our genetics, right, which would be called prenatal Jing, but it's our reserved life force. It's our reserved life force. I'm going to just go back here. Don't want to make anyone dizzy. We can imagine it as a force field or this energy center residing between the adrenal glands. This wax, this pure black substance, little bits of it are taken, as we live our life when we need qi, little bits are taken off of that, just like little bits of a candle are burning. It vaporizes to create this energetic spark, to create this energy throughout the system. Okay, so this is why if we're too hard on our qi, we're going to tap too deeply into our Jing, our battery. Right? Jing is your adrenal energy. It not only helps things like longevity, youthfulness, your reproductive health is all governed by your Jing. Also makes you more steady and relaxed. If we can think of someone, right, with strong adrenal glands that's really calm under pressure, they usually have a lot of Jing energy. They're calm, focused, relaxed. Where was I going to say? So anytime you're dealing with someone with infertility or fertility issues, I should say, it's all related to that Jing energy, right? Your reproductive system massively is related to Jing energy. The more Jing and the stronger Jing you have, the stronger reproductive system you have. Now, basically, in a nutshell, now this is a nutshell, but any issue we have that's belly button down is going to show some lack of Jing or imbalance in our Jing system. So belly button down, called the lower burner. If any of those things happen, like bad knees, bad ankles, reproductive health, all these issues, we know that, hey, we just need to boost our Jing. We need to get on Jing supporting herbs, and it's going to help clear that up. So instead of taking maybe anti-inflammatories for your knee, not to say that you shouldn't, but if we really want to fundamentally help that bad knee, we need these Jing tonics to rebuild the system, rebuild our energy, and get us strong, right? We're trying to enhance vigor in life. Now, vigor, libido, not necessarily the same thing. We use them interchangeably. But one classic way to know if your Jing is strong is keeping tabs or keeping aware of how strong your libido is, right? This is going to give you a clear identifier as well in terms of your vigor for life. Now, the other interesting thing, like I said, keeping us calm and relaxed with Jing energy, or when we have a strong Jing energy, it's also believed to govern our courage and the power behind our will. So this is helping us keep forward focused in life. Again, keeping us relaxed, calm under pressure. Very, very important. I wanted to say too that just like the kidney system in general in Chinese medicine, Jing energy is responsible for governing all water elements in the body. That would include blood, that would include hormones, anything that's dealing with the water element. Again, I'm sorry, this is a quick rundown because we don't have a ton of time, but now the fascinating thing, actually, I'll save that thought. We'll get into this first. Symptoms of Jing imbalance and loss. So how do we know? Like I said before, libido, keeping your eye on that, or keeping tabs on your libido. Anything belly button down, like I said, so even back pain, lower back pain, weakness, knees and ankles, fatigued, right? Your life force, your batteries are low. Any sleep issues, right? We need to boost that Jing. Having a strong Jing helps us keep asleep at night. Your memory starting to fail you, hair loss, gray hair, especially premature gray hair. Those are all classic identifiers that your Jing is prematurely depleting. Hormonal imbalance, like I said before, fertility issues, that loss of vigor. Big one here, anxiety and depression, which is going to lead me into my next thought, but anxiety, depression, all related to that Jing imbalance and loss, okay? Weak immune system, I mentioned this before with the Wei Qi. We don't have a strong Jing energy. We can't emanate this force field for public protection. So all of these issues, said another way, are helped by Jing tonic herbs. Now, anxiety, depression, and a lot of these here, what would these mimic when it comes to mind? These symptoms, they're symptoms of adrenal fatigue as well. So this is a more Western way to overlay what Jing imbalance and loss is. Now, there's a lot of people out there that talk about adrenal fatigue. It's not a real thing. Because the adrenals can't get tired, which that is true, but it doesn't take into account the imbalance we can have in this adrenal system, right? It's an imbalance. It's more accurate to talk about adrenal fatigue as a Jing imbalance or loss, right? Depletion of Jing. Now, when we look, these are 75, well, there is over 75, these aren't 75, and I think this is actually over 80 now. You know, anyone that says adrenal fatigue is not real or Jing energy is not real, talk to somebody who's had a long list of these symptoms, and they will definitely tell you, especially using Jing herbs to help build this back, makes a huge difference. And, you know, proof is in the pudding. But you'll see things like anxiety, right? Adrenal fatigue is related to that. Same with Jing loss. Depression, like I said, low thyroid function, that would be another thing related to Jing loss. Low libido, problems with blood pressure, right? That's a water element. You know, that wired and tired feeling when you're trying to go to sleep. Again, Jing energy. We want to boost our Jing energy. Unable to get pregnant or fertility issues, right? Adrenal fatigue, also Jing energy. So you can just see that this overlays so well, right? With that Jing loss and imbalance. Now, having said this, right, you can look it up yourself, but there's some people out there at least that talk about adrenal fatigue as this huge epidemic of modern, especially Western culture, where there's some people that say 80% of the population deals with some sort of adrenal fatigue. It just so happens that herbalists like Ron Teagarden talk about yin Jing loss affecting 80% of the population. So my whole point on this is that these things are one and the same, basically in a nutshell. If that helps you talk about Jing loss as adrenal fatigue, go for it. If it's easier with Jing, I think it's easier with Jing because it's less kind of science to memorize. But the number one thing that is going to affect us and deplete our adrenals and Jing in our modern day world is definitely stress. I won't get too deep in this because I just pulled this from another talk and put it in here last night. But stress is the number one problem affecting us. It's the number one insidious thing, right? Stress is ubiquitous. It's insidious. It's all around us and it's depleting our Jing energy massively. Now, something that's really interesting, shout out to U of C alumni, but University of Calgary research published in Nature Neuroscience journal showed that stress can be contagious as well. So now more than ever, we need to boost our Jing energy, get our energy fields intact, and fundamentally support this because stress is everywhere. Now, especially if we live in urban environments, which I'm sure most of us probably on this talk or on this call actually do live in urban environments. But this research is fascinating how they actually stress some mice out, put it back into a population of unstressed mice. And within a short amount of time, that stress, those chemical responses transferred through the whole population. So who you hang out, you become. This gets into a deeper talk about microbiome and quantum energy fields, which we don't have time to get into. But just know that stress is everywhere. So we have to keep care of it and keep that in mind to build our Jing energy to help avoid these stressors, or the damage, I should say, these stressors cause on us. Obviously, two main types of stress. I won't get too much into this, but it's the unproductive stress, right? Not hormesis. Hormesis is productive stress. This is your sauna, your cold exposure, that type of thing. Hormesis is really good. It's the unproductive, stress that's the killer, right? Physical stress, psychological stress, social stress, spiritual stress, all this adds up to basically draining our Jing energy, right? We need that foundational Jing energy, because I'll say it once, I'll say it 20 times. Once our Jing is gone, life is over, right? Lights are out, party's over. Someone who's got a really strong Jing, my grandfather was a really good example of this, lived till late 90s and almost had a black head of hair till the very end, right? And then you could just see the life force leaving, started to turn gray within like a year or whatever. Party was over for whatever reason. But when we have that strong Jing energy, very, very important. I will say too, this is important, I just want to mention this to everybody, that Jing energy, it's debatable, but you can build it. I'm under the philosophy that you can rebuild your Jing energy, right? You can actually reverse that aging process, even though some people say, right, extremely hard to replenish. If you're following the seasonal attunement theory, right, you're sleeping well, you're eating right, all those fundamental things, you can build back or even stop the loss of this Jing energy. And that's going to some amazing things. They're finding an anti-aging science right now. But from an energetic tonic herbalism standpoint, it's all about building that Jing energy and rebuilding it back. Okay, so having said all that, I know that's a big download. We got about 11 minutes left. I want to go over 4 herbs. These are about embracing the tonic herbs, again, for the winter, specifically for Jing energy. Now, the number 1 herb you can do this time of year, without a doubt, is Shou Wu. Shou Wu, Shou Wu, Shou Wu, many different ways to pronounce it. But it is a quintessential, or it is the quintessential Jing tonic. It has such a tremendous, or such an amount of qi that is compacted in its roots, that this qi is thought to compress back down into pure Jing energy. So Shou Wu, even though, and we'll get into it, but a very protective herb, it's a very powerful blood tonic, powerful liver tonic. The most important aspect of it, and this is where it gets, again, esoteric for people, but is this Jing building ability, right? This Jing building, propensity when you're consuming this herb. Now, by building this Jing, you're going to help resolve a lot of these symptomologies that you might have on the few slides before that you saw. But basically, it goes down to, consuming it winter into spring at the very least. Now, like I always say too, even though these tonic herbs are better suited at certain times of the year, we can take them throughout the year, especially, stick with me, not to make you dizzy, especially if you have any of these symptoms, right? You can still symptom manage with tonic herbs, but at the very least, now is the time for Shou Wu. Now, Shou Wu is, like I said, very, very protective for the body, and it all goes down to something called this Shou Wu superglycoside. Now, this is a still being glycoside. It's very similar to resveratrol, yet much more powerful in effect. It's something like a half teaspoon or a teaspoon of the Shou Wu powder is something like, I think it's 63, or it's some crazy number. We'll just go with 63. I think it's higher than that, but 63 red wine glass equivalents in terms of resveratrol. So 1 little teaspoon of this is the same resveratrol you get from like 60 plus glasses of red wine. So very, very protective and very profound in its antioxidant capacity. It also, by consuming the still being glycoside, will help spur on the secretion or the production of superoxide dismutase. So superoxide dismutase, right, scavenges free radical superoxide molecules in the body, right, which are the most harmful. They're an intermediary in terms of liver processing phases of the liver. But taking this is going to protect our cells through a few different mechanisms. One is the SOD. One is that it's very protective and antioxidant, very powerful antioxidant in its own. Now, Shou Wu has an ability to protect all somatic cells in the body. If you're not familiar with what that is, that means all the cells in the body except the reproductive sperm and eggs. Those few cells are something that nothing really touches. All the other cells in the body are going to be benefited by the protective aspect of Shou Wu. Now, what's really fascinating, we can look, they've done some animal studies on Shou Wu, and they've seen this positive change in life expectancy, or even a 5% decoction. So this is a light tea, right? A light tea boiled down, but still only 0.5%, was able to prolong the lifespan of a fruit fly by 12%. So now while 12% doesn't seem so profound, if you extrapolated that data to a human living 80 years, right, our life expectancy, that's almost another decade. It's like 9.7 or 9.8 more years of life just by consuming this light decoction of Shou Wu, right? It's this concentrated Jing essence in the body. Shou Wu, again, like I said, is a really powerful blood tonic. So even though it doesn't necessarily, the blood tonic ability doesn't necessarily build Jing directly, Jing energy is responsible for the blood. So it's kind of that one-way street, that water element. It actually spurs on hematopoietic stem cells, causing the process of hematopoiesis, which is the building of red blood cells. So you're actually building your blood, like creating more blood in the system, excuse me. You're building more blood in the system by consuming this Shou Wu, building that Jing energy. The other amazing thing is that Shou Wu is a yin Jing tonic, right? Just like Ron Teagarden says that we're low in. The yin Jing aspect is the feminine aspect, the fluid aspect, basically the holding of the masculine, right? The holding of the yang. This is such an amazing libido vigor tonic for women and men, but especially women, to secure that vigor, to get that energy back, to get that oomph back. It can be life-changing. A friend of mine, she just raves and raves about Shou Wu, changed her whole libido, her whole vigor. Also works to help balance hormones because it has a liver tonic, even though it's not one that we commonly think of to balance hormones. This is doing it in a foundational Jing energy way. So anytime someone comes to me, they're tired, right? Sore knees, sore lower back, lack libido, I said tired, but fatigue in general, it's Shou Wu. Shou Wu. It's one of these ones that's kind of this unsung hero when it comes to tonic herbalism, yet massively important. So anyway, I could talk on and on about it, but we want to get through some other herbs. But this time of year, at the very least, is something you should incorporate in your diet, and you don't need very much. Half teaspoon, every day, every other day. It's more about getting it in through this season of winter, not being pharmaceutical about it while you're hitting it all the time. You can, but you don't need to. It's about just incorporating it as this tonic food in the body. Very nutritive in zinc as well. I should mention this. I don't like to promote it as this, but it's the one you'll read about on the internet that can reverse gray hair. One of my colleagues has used it for that, and she goes on and on about how it's so good for the hair in general. So healthy hair. My physiotherapist, I gave it to her because she was having some problems with her hair. Massive difference. But I don't like to promote it as reversing gray hair because there's so many other issues when it comes to that. But that's what it is traditionally known for. This actually translates to Mr. Ho's black hair, Shou Wu. So going ahead, another Jing tonic. Now this is a product I actually realized late last night that you guys don't have listed. So I've talked to Sandra about it. So it's something you'll be getting in. This is one of my favorite things that we carry, hands down. It's Reishi Mushroom Spores. Now, I know everybody's familiar with Reishi Mushroom, so we don't have to get into too much of the nitty gritty on what Reishi Mushroom is. This is the spores of Reishi Mushroom. So this is the concentrated essence. So if you look at what the spores are, Reishi Mushroom is a polypore mushroom. It's got pores on the underside. It releases these spores, right? These seeds, right? They're basically the sperm cell of the Reishi Mushroom into the environment, and that's how it propagates, right? That's how it reproduces. The spores of Reishi Mushroom, now Reishi Mushroom in general is an amazing Jing tonic. Reishi Mushroom is one of these herbs that's got all three treasures in it, Jing, Qi, and Shen, so it'll address all the treasures. But when we look specifically at the spores, there is nothing better, in my opinion, as an adrenal tonic than Reishi Mushroom spores. This is the pure, they're black in nature, so it's the pure black Jing energy of the Reishi Mushroom, right? So not only can we consume Reishi Mushroom, but then we can consume the pure Jing energy aspect of this Reishi Mushroom. Super mind-blowing. Now, when we look at Reishi Mushroom spores, you'll read like outlandish things on the internet, but in my experience, I believe about the 70 to 100 times more potent than Reishi Mushroom in terms of the triterpene content. So when you look at like a lot of like mushroom extracts on the market and like concentrated products, Usually they're about 2% triterpene. Reishi mushroom spores can be up to 8%. So the current batch we have, for example, is just under 5%, which is stellar, right? It's 5% triterpenes. So when you're talking about a stress tonic, when you're talking about getting you out of your head into your heart, when you're talking about any sort of adrenal fatigue or anxiety or any of those Jing-related loss imbalances, the reishi mushroom spores are the Cadillac of tonic herbs for this. So again, any time of the year you can consume these for sure, but it's right now, especially winter, or if you're dealing with any sort of stress, it's definitely my go-to for any stressful situation to keep me calm and balanced. Remember, reishi mushroom in general, about 2 to 3 hours after ingestion, we're going to get that brainwave harmonization happening. Well, reishi mushroom spores are going to help that even faster, I find, and just keep you grounded. It's the go-to, definitely in my household for any sort of stressful event. And it all goes down to that. It's the pure Jing energy of the reishi mushroom. So yes, does all the other immune facets of reishi mushroom, right? It's anti-inflammatory. All these aspects still apply. But when we're talking about the adrenal, the anti-stress aspect, it doesn't get much better than reishi mushroom spores. Now, you will find that these are more expensive per bag. However, the amount of potency you'll get is such a better bang for the dollar that it's like a steal, really, honest opinion. Yeah, I think it's like, well, being 70 times more, and I don't know what you guys would retail it for, but for the amount that you'll get and the amount you need to take, which is like, you know, you could take up to a teaspoon. You could, in really hard situations, take 2 teaspoons a day, but usually about a half teaspoon is all people need. It's such a better bang for the buck. And for the sake of time, I just got to move ahead here because we've got 1 minute and there's 2 herbs I want to get through in 1 minute. Now, Astragalus, some people say this is the most important herb in the world. Now, this primarily is a qi tonic herb, right? Also known for the lungs. But like, as you remember before, I'm just going to go back. Don't get dizzy on me. As you remember before, the lungs and digestion need to come together to make this wei qi, where the Jing promotes it. Now, because everything is interrelated in the human body and in nature, we also, when we're trying to build a strong Jing, need to also pay attention to our lungs and our digestion, because it's a two-way street with this. So at this time of year for the winter season alone, if you're going to take it anytime for fall and winter, Astragalus is where it's at. It's going to specifically help this wei qi, right? The skin-associated lymphatic tissue, but it's very, very protective in nature and does help our Jing energy, right? There's something in it called astragaloside 4, which is a type of adaptogenic saponin that will actually help spur on telomerase, or sorry, stop telomerase from unconstructing our DNA and unanchoring our telomeres. So Astragalus will help keep our telomeres. That's the anchor point on your DNA spiral. Your DNA starts to, when you start to age, excuse me, I'm rushing here, but when your DNA starts to age and unspiral, that's when our body starts to age. Astragalus is going to help keep that locked down, help keep that DNA spiral locked down. So again, massively important for the immune system. This is a prophylactic protective herb. This is something you should be on, you know, pretty much constantly throughout these 2 seasons for cold and flu to keep our immune system strong while protecting our Jing energy. Last one I want to talk about, again, a newer product for you guys. We talked to Sandra about this, but is our elderberry. So when I was talking before about dark purple berries, elderberry is one. This elderberry is wild grown in Patagonia. It's then freeze dried, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful representation of what fresh elderberry would be. Now, elderberry, I don't need to talk too much. Everyone knows that it's the flu fighter, right? Colds and flus are where it's at. It has some interesting abilities. Not only would it be a Jing tonic because it's black and dark by nature, we also find, again, leading to its ability to build Jing, but it's a great nerve tonic, especially for nerve pain. We can consume elderberry. It's not only going to help the cardiovascular system, but obviously help reduce the infectivity of foreign pathogens within the system, right? That's what it's best known for. Now, elderberry has something called called antivirin. This is an agent that actually helps remove or break off the spikes of spike proteins for infectivity. I don't know, before I get 10 questions about if it works for COVID-19, I have no idea if it does. To find research on that nowadays is next to impossible. But there was pre-existing research showing that it would neutralize the effects of these spikes reducing several viruses by reducing their infectivity. They can't attack your cells. So again, it's fortifying, right? It's helping that Jing energy produce that strong Wei Qi energy to give us that fortification from public protection, right? Elderberry also is a very, very powerful antioxidant. They compared it to over 15 dark colored berries, and it had the greatest protective ability out of them all. It actually will even help protect your body and organs from high blood pressure damage, cardiovascular strain, and kind of the list goes on and on. Now, if you want to refer more to these slides, obviously this will be posted after. You can read through these at your leisure. But like I said, in the interest of time, I don't want to keep everybody. But I want to thank you for sticking in there. I know that's a lot in 50 minutes or 53 minutes. So I appreciate it. If anyone has any questions, I'll stay here. But if not, thanks so much, everybody. I really appreciate the time. And thanks for having me in. I know it was last minute. So thank you again.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hope to see you guys soon. Take care.
Oh, I have a question here.
Sure.
Chinook. My name is Manali. And which
Hi
one
there.
do you recommend for somebody who is on antidepressant for depression?
Oh,
and
so for,
Seasonopia. Yeah.
yeah. So if they're on antidepressants, it would. So the question is, which one would I recommend when someone is on antidepressants?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a loaded one since there's so many different types. I think though, when you're dealing with depression, any of these Jing tonic herbs can help because they're not necessarily like pharmaceutical compounds that would act as terms of a medicinal herb would be. So ideally, I think Shou Wu would be your best bet, or Reishi mushroom would be your best bet. Now, Shou Wu deals again with depression and anxiety on a foundational level and can radically help, while also being safe in the terms of that it's actually just building an energy in the body. It's not giving any chemistry that you would typically, like St. John's wort, for example, would give that helps depression. This is dealing on a different level. So I would say Shou Wu would be the first one I would try.
Okay. And can this be taken with somebody who's on medications with type 2 diabetes?
Oh, great question. So can someone take these herbs when it's someone who's type 2 diabetic? You do have to watch reishi mushroom. So if someone's on medication for diabetes, a lot of times reishi mushroom will help modulate blood sugar. But if they're taking insulin or any sort of drugs like that, sometimes it'll double up on the effect and lower it. So that is a great question. So you'd want to use caution. It's not a hard or fast yes or no when it comes to that situation because it depends on the person. So I've had people in the past come to me and ask about, say, Shou Wu or reishi mushroom spores. And what I always tell people is slow and monitor, right? If they really want to take it, do your own research. They need to do their own research and get comfortable with it. But they really need to monitor their sugars to see how it's affecting them before they start at full amounts. So slow and steady. So quarter doses and work up from there.
So it's usually, it lowers the blood sugars. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. So usually, especially in someone who's diabetic, we want to make sure that we keep care of that. But usually these will help remove or pull sugar out of the blood. So we want to keep caution with that. And, I've had like a type 1 diabetic that used to work at one of the stores that loved the Gynostema because she could drink Gynostema tea, which we didn't talk about today. But this is a side note. But the Gynostema allowed her to use way less insulin. So by her own monitoring, she was able to get off a lot of the insulin drugs and just use a natural tea to help balance it. But each case is so individual for that, so individual. And it's such a good point to make because diabetes is a water element, which does deal with the adrenals and kidneys. And so it depends on that person's state of health or Jing energy reserves with their own system. But yeah, so it's not a real hard and fast answer to that other than they just need to monitor and take low amounts and see how it affects them.
And does it also, sorry for too many questions.
No, please. Yeah, please.
Does it also help thinning the blood?
Yeah, the reishi mushroom, you mean? Yeah, correct. Yeah. So reishi mushroom is also a blood modulator for sure. Now this will help. So a good thing to keep that in mind. And this is one of the ones you always have to watch is blood thinners with herbs in general. So I shouldn't say most herbs. A lot of herbs will help modulate blood thinness, but when you're taking warfarin or these blood thinners, they can make it too thin. So bleeding is always an issue, especially also with diabetes. You got to watch that as well. I lost my train of thought on that. Oh, so reishi mushroom, for example, I shouldn't say one of the only contraindications, but one of the main scientific contraindications of reishi mushroom would be before or after surgery, because of that inability to clot blood, because it's so effective at keeping it thin. So you definitely have to watch that. And that's a tough one with blood thinners.
Right, yeah. No, this person doesn't take the blood thinner,
Oh, okay.
but because with type 2 diabetes, they always suggest, they always say that the blood has, it gets clogged very easily, and that's why medically they provide blood thinners.
Yeah. So you can use
And instead of that, can we use this?
I can't say medical advice, but for my family and friends like that, I would always say try reishi mushroom first. I don't know if that person has tried even garlic is a really good modulator for blood thinness. There's something else too that I was just reading. Now I'm forgetting. But I will say usually reishi mushroom, garlic, I'll mention first for that modulation of blood thinness. Oh, and there's something else too. If it comes to me, I will let you guys know. But it's about balancing that clotting effect, right?
Right, yeah.
And that's the important part, because you don't want it too thin. Obviously, you don't want it too thick. But reishi mushrooms, especially spores, can be amazing to keep that blood thin.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, I will stop this. Okay, thanks again, everybody. And I'll see everybody this afternoon who wants to join us again. Thanks. Bye-bye.